You are listening to That Big CEO Energy, where we talk all things business, life, marriage, and push you to a new edge of discovering what that big CEO energy means for you. Listen, I understand that we have barriers that we carry from when we were once employees, and those have impacted us as we continue to build our businesses. I'm here to walk alongside you and give you encouragement through interviews with friends and other women in business who have broken down those barriers and paved their own way. Tune in with me as we uncover some of the unconscious things that we do that keep us from building that big CEO energy we've always dreamed about. Let's dive in. Welcome to another episode of That Big CEO Energy, the podcast that we all know that's helping you unleash your inner CEO. I'm your host, Kallai, and today we have a topic that is near and dear to my heart: balancing business and marriage. I know. Before we even get into it, I just want to say that I have an incredible husband. I really do. And I'm going to get emotional because from day one, this man has done nothing but believe in me. And I get emotional about it because we both have been married before, and there is nothing like having someone that is your true partner that you really can walk through the good, the bad, the ugly with, and know without a shadow of a doubt that that person is not going anywhere, that, you know, if things get tough, guess what? You go to bed and you get up the next day and you just try again, right? You just be 1% better. But we also come from a very serving heart in the sense that he serves me in such a capacity that is such from the heart that it is unlike anything I've ever experienced in my whole entire life. And so before we get started with this episode, I just want to thank him. My husband's name is Chris, and I'm so honored to be in this life with you, and I'm so honored to do this walk with you. And I just thank you from the bottom of my heart for always supporting my dreams, no matter what. So with that being said, you know, being an entrepreneur is exhilarating, but it also can be incredibly demanding. And it's really, really easy to get caught up in building your business. Sometimes you neglect your personal life, right? And so today we're going to delve into the challenges that most entrepreneurs face when it comes to maintaining a healthy marriage. And more importantly, I think I want to share some valuable tips on what has worked for us to find sort of that elusive balance between being an entrepreneur and having a healthy marriage. But I first want to acknowledge that entrepreneurship is like a roller coaster, right? As it's full of ups and downs, and those fluctuations can have a big impact on your personal life, especially your marriage. And I think that rings true for me also in our marriage, in the sense that and I would say that I'm still in the building phase, but I've gotten a little bit of a better handle on it. But when I was starting my business and really going through the motions of getting everything set up and understanding what kind of schedule I would have, or what kind of schedule I was leaning into for my clients, and setting boundaries, there were some very blurred lines of work, right? Like my husband, up until recently, which that's a different story for a different day that I will let him tell, because I really think that's going to be an interesting episode. But my husband was a blue collar man for many, many, many years. And if we know anything about blue collar, it's you work until, you work before the sun comes up until the sun goes down. And that life can be very hard on marriage itself, that life is very hard on the men that are supporting their family and literally working their body to the bone to do so. But again, we'll get into that a different time. So we were not immune from sort of this blue collar life of not really, sometimes not seeing each other. You know, he worked in a company that dealt with farmers. And so if anybody knows anything about farming, it is, again, you work before the sun comes up until the sun goes down. And when it's harvest season, that is something, I mean, I didn't even think about what harvest season would bring us. So we were used to dealing with sort of schedule changes and whatnot. But one thing that always remained true when I was in corporate was I would work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. When he was blue collar, before, when he was in the oil fields life, you know, that was 24 days on, 7 off, or 21/7, whatever that looked like. So he was away from his family for 21 days or 28 days, however many days in a row. And I could only imagine how much the family dynamic had suffered then, right? But life happens. And so when we got together and he moved here and he was still doing blue collar work, there was a little bit of transition in the sense that he worked a Monday through Friday. But Monday through Friday for us meant that he was working, he would get up and go to work at 3 a.m. So he had a little bit of commute, like a little over an hour. But he would work from like 5 a.m. until whenever. Some days it's 2 o'clock because it's raining, it's windy. And, you know, when you're operating a crane, that is not good conditions. And then other days, it would be, I didn't see him until 9 p.m. because it's harvest season and we are grinding. So while I had a very traditional job in the sense of Monday through Friday, and one could say that he had a traditional job of Monday through Friday, his Monday through Friday looked vastly different. And so we have these cute little 2 days of Saturday and Sunday, right? And we dedicated every Friday night to date night. We dedicated Saturdays and Sundays to spending time with our family, spending time with each other. You know, we would carve out times where we would go on vacation, all of the things. And so that was our life. When I had decided to move into entrepreneurship, again, coming back to sort of the unknowns, right? What I wasn't prepared for was how much I would have to work in the evening hours, how much I would have to work on the weekends. And that really started to take a toll on the 2 precious days that I had with my husband. And so there was a call out time that my husband lovingly said to me, this is not working. I feel that we are letting work sort of interfere into the time that we have. And I'm just feeling this sense of disconnect. And so fully getting on board and having me fully recognize that, yes, that was happening. And I also was feeling it caused me to say, what can I do to set boundaries in my business so that I am functioning my business like a corporation, which is Monday through Friday, I have set hours, and whether or not those hours fluctuate is a different story. Because sometimes I take the day off, or sometimes I only work 2 hours, whatever that looks like. But there were parameters and guidelines that I needed to set up, which meant that, yes, my husband is working this blue collar life, right? I can, in theory, work until, and my husband is always really good at this, and I'm so thankful. he always sends me a text of when he's pulling out of work. That doesn't mean that like it's because I'm the babysitter and he needs to let me know what he's doing. There's a few different factors that I think on my end are the reason why he does this. And I'll have to ask him and we'll circle back on why he does it. But one of the things is I know he's safe, because there are a lot of things that happen or can happen from the time you leave work to the time you come home. And so if something were to happen, or I know exactly how long it takes for him to get from work to home. And so if something were to happen and it goes past sort of this window, I know that I need to start putting some things in action, right? And it's a very real thing that you need to think about when you have a partner. And it's not like you're trying to keep track of them. It's not that you have some Apple tag in the car. It's just genuine care for your other person and letting them know that you are safe. But also, that's a good time for me to shut it down. You know, when he is on his way home, let's say at, 7 p.m., some days I'll work until 7 p.m. And when he says, I'm on my way home, I'm like, great, I can shut my stuff down and I can go and I can get dinner started and, get my load of laundry going or whatever that looks like. But that's kind of a signal to me of like, okay, be ready for him when he gets home so that we can have our time that we love to have together. But one of the common challenges in time management is that when you're passionate about your business, it's really, really easy to let it consume your entire day. Really easy. But what happens when you're neglecting your spouse in the process? What happens when you say, oh, they'll let me know if it's getting too out of line. Right? It'll be okay until it's not. But I think having some practical tips for balancing your business and marriage effectively is helpful. And one tip that has really, really helped us is prioritizing our quality time. So we carve out dedicated quality time for each other, just as you would in important business meetings. And we put away our devices and we're fully present. So I'll link the first episode that my husband and I ever did together because most of those things still ring true. So Wednesdays, we always do our check-in. And then the non-negotiable here is date night. That is just it. We don't care what is happening. We have dedicated date night time. And I know that, we are in a different place because we have teens. And so if you have littles, that can be pretty challenging, but I also want you to challenge yourselves to get creative. So sometimes we have walk-in closets, just so you're aware. If you have a walk-in closet, I would implore you that when the kids go to bed at night, maybe that's your date night spot. Just throwing that out there. But I also want to say that as women, we do a really good job of letting men plan date nights. And so if you're feeling like you need to prioritize some quality time with your husband and you have littles, you can, and you get to figure out what that looks like for you. And maybe your marriage needs a little pizzazz of you planning something if you're a woman. So all of that to say, make sure that you prioritize quality time. The other thing that my husband and I have gotten really good at is setting boundaries. So we establish clear boundaries between work and personal life. Sometimes it doesn't happen so great because someone likes to explore work a little bit more, and I gently have to remind him that work is done, but I also do the same thing. So one thing that has helped us that as I'm talking about this out loud, I'm going to start doing better is we give each other a good 10 to 15 minutes of like what happened in your day. Like just dump it on me. Lay it on me. And we say it and then we're like, okay, and we're done. Now we're transitioning to home. Because when you talk about work all the time, like I I love my husband to death, but I don't need to know everything that he did in his workday from A to Z. His boss needs to know that, I'm sure. But I don't need to know that. Because what I need to know is how my husband is feeling at the end of the day. And what are the things that now that we're transitioning to home life, what are the things that we need to talk about there? Because we only have limited hours throughout the day. And some days, work just got 12 hours of you. I don't need to continue to hear about work. I need to hear about my husband. So the other things are to communicate openly. One of the things is to keep these lines of communication open with your spouse that also needs to make sure that you are sharing your goals, sharing your challenges, and showing the progress. Not only just in his job, right? But also in your business. Because I think, I get super jazzed about things. And I'll say, oh my gosh, I'm working on this thing. And he'll be like, that is super awesome. Tell me more about that. And then I get to, share all the nitty gritty, and it brings me so much joy. But if I just show up and I say, oh, yep, work's going good. I mean, sometimes I do say that because I don't really have anything to share. But if I have a business idea or something, that is totally a time that I can communicate openly with him and ask for his input. One of the final things that we do very well is delegate and seek support. So I no longer try to do everything on my own because my husband is fully capable. I mean, he existed as a single human being that had to take care of his home and his children before I came along. My husband is fully capable of doing tasks around the house, of figuring out what needs to be done. He is fully capable of that. So I'm going to let him be fully capable of doing that. I'm no longer going to try and do things on my own because what happens is I become overwhelmed. I become burnt out. But the same rings true in my business. I have now an assistant, but I delegate tasks in my business whenever possible and seek support from professionals or my husband. And sometimes I say to my husband, I don't have time to do X, Y, and Z. Can you do it? And either he's going to have time or we're going to figure out what needs to be done so that we can do it together. But most often, I don't even have to say things. He will notice that certain parts of the house are falling apart. And he's like, oh, by the way, I cleaned out the kitty litter box. And I'm like, oh, great. Thanks. I didn't even think about that. So there is an onus on you to have a partner that you can delegate to or have support by, letting them have and be their own person that helps around the house. I understand that my husband is not the normal human. I get that. So if you are struggling with your partner and your partner does not have the wherewithal to look around the room and figure out what needs to be done, that needs to be an honest conversation. And the honest conversation, and I'm only bringing this up because it is something that I struggled with in my marriage prior. I have been married before. When I would ask for support and I would get yeah, I'll do it in a minute, there was nothing but rage that came out of me. And ultimately, there was a sense of abandonment that I felt. There was a sense of not having care. There was a sense that there was no serving from the heart, not just to me, right? Because I'm not the only person that needs to be served, but to make our household run. And when you have a partner that is like that, it requires one conversation. You are not their mom. You are not their day planner. You are not their babysitter. You are a partner in their house, in your house. And if your partner cannot get on board after one conversation, I would really look around the room. Because abandonment is a real thing. Mental abandonment is a real thing. And when you say to your partner, yeah, I'll do it in just a minute, when that partner has probably already agonized on the fact that they have to even ask you for help. And if they're getting to the point of saying, I need help right now, even if it's with the trash, right? So that if people are coming over and they're saying, hey, could you run the trash out? And your partner's in the middle of doing 16 other things, it's truly because they are not able to take the freaking trash out. And so if you're saying to them, yeah, I'll do it in just a minute, that's not helpful. Why would they even ask you to do anything again? Right? So if you are the woman in this experience and you're saying to yourself, I have to ask my husband over and over and over again. And it's a running joke on social media, isn't it? Where it's like, oh yeah, you tell your husband to do something and then 6 months down the road, you're still reminding him, ladies, I am telling you that there are men out there that do not do that. And you are responsible for carving out your own life. And so if said person in your life is so disrespectful that they are the running joke that is on social media, that's a problem. That is a marital problem. And that requires one conversation. And after that conversation, if things still are happening in the same way they were before, you've got to make some intentional effort to make it not so. Whether that is a few things. One, now we're on to marriage counseling because apparently I am just not that high on a priority list that asking you to merely take out the freaking trash bothers you. And then if beyond that, beyond the therapist or the marriage counseling or whatever it is, if it's still not working, guess what? They're not the partner for you. Yeah, no. Absolutely not. I'm just going to say I am not a proponent of people getting divorced, but I also know how mentally taxing it is to be with someone who does not even respect you enough to, I'm not even going to say the word help, doesn't respect you enough to take care of the same space that they inhabit. I'm not putting my husband on a pedestal, but I also know that my husband, if he were to say to me, yeah, I'll do it in a minute, there's a few reasons. One is because he's exhausted. And this is particular to my situation, if my husband says, I'll get that in a minute, he's probably in the middle of something. First of all, he would never say, yeah, in a minute and roll his eyes. He'd probably say, and he usually does say, I have about 10 minutes left on this thing. Sometimes it's playing his video games, whatever. I'm almost done with this set. I will get it done when I'm done. He has communicated clear boundaries that like, I am going to do it. I hear you. I acknowledge what you're asking me to do. I'm also letting you know when I am able to get to it. And me being on my end, I have to make a decision. Either that's going to be a good enough answer in the sense that, okay, great. I'm just going to set the trash over here. He's going to get to it into him in a minute. I can mentally decompress for that and I can move along to something else. Or if it's that much in my way, guess what? I'm just going to say to him, no worries. I got that. And I take it out right now. But also, can you just listen for the potatoes that are in the oven that are boiling, right? So that he knows that like the reason why I asked him to take out the trash is because there's something a little more important that's happening right now. But also like I've got to make that decision on, is it important now or can it be important 10 minutes from when he moves on? But let me tell you, my husband is also a man of his word. And that is something super valuable. So when he says to me, I'll do it in 10 minutes or I'll do it in 5 minutes, guess what? 5 to 7 minutes later, here comes my husband and he's grabbing the trash. And he usually says, is there anything else that needs to go out there? So two things here. One, we are delegating, right? We are not asking for help in our households. We are delegating to each other. And my husband sometimes says to me, hey, I started the laundry. Can you pop it in the dryer if I forget? Words matter. Having conversation with your person matters. And why am I telling this big, long story? Because when it comes to your business, it's the same way that you dance in your household as you dance in your business. If I need to work on a Saturday because I have projects that are due, I say to my husband, hey, heads up, I know that we're not doing anything this weekend. I do need to work a little bit on Saturday. He knows now that I am unavailable. And he knows to preoccupy himself. And usually he does very well. But communicating this on Thursday, on Wednesday, somewhere in the middle of the week when I know that like Saturday is going to come and I'm going to need that time, preparing him and having enough respect for him to say, hey, by the way, I just need a little bit of time on Saturday. And I've also done my homework, right? To see that there's nothing on the calendar, that we really don't have anything going on. And sometimes he will say, we were supposed to do X, Y, and Z. And it's usually because I didn't write it down. So then I'm like, oh, crap. But it usually comes with him saying, so it starts at this time. Did you want to work between this time and this time? And I'm like, yeah, great. That works really well. Do you see how us having conversation about my business and in the household, it's a conversation. You have to talk to your partner. You can't just coexist with each other, right? It's not really about sacrificing for one or another. You can be a successful entrepreneur and have a thriving marriage. What it takes is sacrificial love. And when you have the sacrificial love, it is encompassed by having intentional effort and planning. That's really all that sacrificial love is. And when you use the word sacrifice, it's not like you're giving up a part of you. You're genuinely so in love with that person that like you just want to see the best for them. You just want them to have success. And in whatever capacity that you can help them have that success, you know that it yields benefits on your end as well. And that's not a selfish thing. It's just what marriage is. And I'm going to say it's not just what marriage is. It is what a thriving marriage is. And let me tell you, it took me years to really understand sacrificial love. And I'm so thankful, and I wish that everybody on the face of the planet could have a marriage like mine. And it is not perfect. It is not perfect at all. We are a blended family. We have walked through hell, and sometimes we still walk through hell together. But it is the perfect marriage for us because we learn and we grow and we love so hard. And the way in which we love yields results in the sense that you just want something so good for the other person. So before we wrap up today's episode, I just want to leave you with this challenge. And it is to have an open and honest conversation with your spouse about the balance between your business and your marriage. Ask them how they're feeling and what changes can be made to strengthen your relationship. When you open the conversation of, I know that my business is a little bit hindering. I know that you are working super long hours. How can we together come up with a balance? And what can I do that is intentional, that helps us together understand how we're feeling when each thing comes about, and what changes do we need to make together. It is no longer you are doing X, Y, and Z, and I feel like you are abandoning me or whatever. And that may be your situation now, but I'm here to tell you that there is a way out. And I would also say that one of the main reasons why we often stay in places where we know we have outgrown them is because it's comfortable, is because we sometimes don't have resources to be able to leave. But I would implore you that both of those, you are fully capable to make the decision to leave. It will get figured out. I love you all so much, and I hope that this is a little bit of a deeper conversation that you can have with your partner, because many of us have beautiful marriages and many of us have beautiful businesses. And so my hope for you is that if you are someone who is married and you have a partner, that you would take the challenge seriously. And until next time, you're more powerful than you think. Thanks for tuning into the show today. If you heard something that helped you, I would love it if you would leave a review and share it with your friends. This helps more people just like you become inspired to move the needle of their big CEO energy into a positive direction. If you would like to learn more about how I can help you streamline and position your business for growth, or lead your business as a CEO, feel free to jump into the show notes with all of the links to find me. And don't forget to head over to Instagram so we can be pals.